Hello everyone, my name is Jorge Castillo and today I will present projectile motion in basic physics. In order to understand projectile motion, we must first comprehend what is it. Projectile motion is described as a phenomenon that follows a bidimensional trajectory moving through height and length in a parabolic manner. But before starting, you must first understand a list of important key terms, which are xf or yf. That would mean final distance both for the x and y axis. The same as xo or yo, which will mean the origin, just as shown in here. As any bidimensional map, the scenario will follow two axes, horizontal and vertical, represented y and x respectively. Then the velocities, vox or voy, will mean the initial velocity for both axes. Vfx will mean the final velocity, and Bo will be the initial velocity of the vector, which I'll show you in a minute. This symbol will mean the angle, A acceleration, and T time. They will be measured in seconds and in meter per squared seconds respectively. Then you must first know the four main formulas. The formulas given, now that the formulas are given, you can substitute, calculate, and clear off any wanted value using algebra knowledge. There are also two small formulas made for projectile motion, which I'll show you in a minute. Now moving on to the scenario. This scenario is based with an initial quantity of 15 meters per second in the initial velocity and an angle of 53.13 degrees. Now, before starting, you must understand three phenomena that happen in a projectile motion scenario. First, a parabolic throw will always follow a mirror effect, moving from the origin onto the highest point, which will at the same time be half the range, and falling back again, forming a mirror effect, which means the same speed as it's thrown, the same speed as it is received. Secondly, you must understand that as a bidimensional scenario, there will always be two coordinates, x and y coordinates, which will have to be calculated separately. Third, you must understand where do each of the values go and how to substitute them, starting with the angle and the origin point. Secondly, initial velocity. However, the initial velocity is not the same as the x or y axis velocity. In order to calculate them, you must follow two simple formulas. For the x-axis, you need to multiply the initial velocity times the cosine of the angle. And for the y-axis, you must multiply the initial velocity times the sine of the angle, which will give us 9 and 12 meters per second respectively. Secondly, the acceleration. Acceleration for x-axis, as there is no wind, nor braking, there won't be any acceleration, nor not negative nor positive, which will mean that x velocity will remain the same until the end. As you can see, in any point, x velocity is always the same. On the other hand, the y-axis velocity, the y-axis acceleration, also known as gravity, will always be a given number of minus 9.8 meters per square second, which means that y velocity will decrease until reaching 0 and then falling back again. This will give us a final point for y of 0 meters. That being said, there's only one more step to follow in order to get any value you want. You must get the time. How do you get the time? Time to the highest point is calculated by dividing it is always calculated by dividing gravity from the absolute value, negative value of the initial velocity in the y-axis, or dividing the initial velocity by gravity and then having an absolute number, which means it always has to be positive. It will give us a given number of 1.22 seconds. This means the object that has been thrown will take 1.22 seconds in order to reach its highest point. Knowing the parabolic manner, we can also state that the ball will take a total time of traveling all the way of twice the time of the highest point, which will be 2.44 seconds. However, for calculating the y-axis values, you must take the time to the highest point as a substitution, not the total. This way you will get the values of the final distance to how it reaches the highest point. I hope it was useful for you. Energy is another thing, but I think it is worthy for another video some other time. Thank you for watching.